Our wonderful panel here, we have Bruce Emerson, and he is with SAIC. How many of you are familiar with SAIC? Great. Do you remember them in the top 20 prime contractors listing that I had in my charts before? So Bruce has been with the SAIC for a number of years and has participated in a number of different mentor-protégé agreements, so he can talk to you about that. Then we have got the wonderful Miss Gwen Johnson with Parsons, who has not only worked with the NASA Mentor-Protégé program, but has also worked with the Department of Defense Mentor-Protégé program. So she brings a wealth of information on the various kinds of programs, what you need to know to participate and how you can take full advantage of that. And last but not least, we have got the wonderful Shamice Smith, and she's with SGT. I did mention SGT earlier. They used to be a small business, and so they've gone quite large and are doing wonderful work at a number of different NASA centers. So with that, we're going to start off with Bruce Emerson, and he has got a presentation that should be coming up shortly. Bruce, want to kick it off?
Yep, I will. Oops, let's see here. Yeah. Should I do it from here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Good, good. So real briefly, I think I'll just give you a couple of slides on SCIC, who we are, what we do for a living. So SCIC stands for Science Applications International Corporation, SAIC. We typically don't use all those long words, just SAIC. Been in business since 1969. Started as a small business right here in California, working for, well, the original founder was actually a nuclear physicist that started work here in California. We're now about $4.5 billion. On the next slide, you can see a little bit of, well, oh, I'm sorry, thanks. And on the next slide, you see a little bit where we're at. We're about 15,000 employees today. We do mostly federal work, and so if there's a DoD installation or activity or a NASA center, we're there. And then, of course, our largest location is up in the Washington, D.C. Metro area. On the next slide, you'll see a little bit about the work that we do. Engineering and integration is a big part of what we do. Logistics and is a big part. We one of our most interesting logistics programs is one for the Defense Logistics Agency, where we won a $2.5 billion program to manage Army tires, military tires. That was a big program. That's a lot of logistics too, worldwide. Information technology, engineering and information technology is where I spend most of my time. In those areas, and of course I'm dedicated to NASA as an agency, so I don't reach out and work very much with other federal agencies. The company does, but I don't. And then of course platform integration. SCIC is a large federal integrator responsible for doing complex integrations for the agency or agencies. Now on this last chart, Tabby, do you want me to talk through this last chart? Oh, next one. Do you want me to talk through this and some of the lessons learned, or you don't want to wait for questions and answers from you?
Just talk through. Sorry, just talk through it. Discuss some of the lessons learned. But
okay, all right.
Really, for the small businesses in the room, what they would like to know is how do they get engaged? How do they become a part of your?
Well, I can do that. Okay. And I didn't know if you wanted to ask questions to each of us on the panel about that, or if you just wanted me to cover this. So we're really happy, this has gotten louder, we're really happy with our first mentor-protege agreement that I was engaged in. It was with an HBCU, historically black university and college, Oakwood University out of Huntsville, Alabama. And it was just NASA, you know, is one of those agencies that stepped up first and invited HBCUs into the Mentor-Protégé program. When they did that in 2008, SCIC took our partner that was on a program with us, you know, Oakwood University, and wrote a Mentor-Protégé agreement, established it, and that was the first one in the agency. Pretty proud of that. The latest one that we did was with a company called Ignite. They're a small service-disabled veteran company that works with us on a couple of different NASA programs. Great company. We wrote a mentor-protege agreement with them, just turned it in, just got it started this year. We just celebrated that signing of that agreement with Tabby and her crew about a month and a half ago. It's primarily designed to work with that small business to help them better understand how to do software development, especially in the areas that we do it with the NASA. So I was asked to talk a little bit about lessons learned, both from the mentor and from the protege side of the house. And in past years, as we've been going through this, we continually have interchange and exchanges with NASA, the small businesses that we work with, and others to determine how we can do it a little bit better. But, you know, some of the short highlights, identify the organizational needs. So one of the things that you do when you first start a mentor-protege is you do a needs assessment with that small business. You determine where, you know, where they can use some mentors' assistance, developmental assistance in the best areas. With Ignite, for instance, we did that in CMMI, project management, and a number of other software development skills that were necessary to help them grow and expand. And that's working for them. By the way, just as it had for Oakwood University. Oakwood University has stepped into network engineering and a number of other things that they weren't doing previously before we had our mentor-protege agreement. So the first thing and the most important thing is develop that needs assessment, determine what it is that we need to do between the two companies, where we need to concentrate. Identify the growth areas. What markets do you want to get into? What agencies do you want to support? And what NACE codes do you want to concentrate on in that development assistance? So with the protege, those are all things that are all about their future growth. Not necessarily what they're going to do with the mentor, but their own future growth. That's really important. And then SCIC has some ground rules or rules of thumb on when we'll enter into a protege or mentor-protege agreement with you. You have to have the staffing that's necessary in the back office to support that. So if you're a 10-person, 12-person shop, then chances are all those guys are out working, right? And so you're outsourcing your HR, or the owner is the HR. You're outsourcing your accounting, or the owner is accounting. And so it's really important that you have the necessary resources that in your back office that can help support. Now, everything's not about back office and accounting and whatnot. It's also about the technical development. The preponderance of a mentor-protege agreement within NASA, 70% I think is a ground rule, needs to be on the technical side of the house, and then 30% on the business side of the house. A little bit different with a university. You can flip that around some when you're doing a university, but that's the general ground rule that NASA lays out on their mentor-protege agreements. For the mentor, having established policies and procedures, and be prepared to share them. Don't consider them proprietary. So if you're a large business, your policies and practices that you have in place, be prepared to share that with your protege so that they don't have to start from scratch. They can use them, transform them into their own, and move forward from there. Develop a business case for that particular agreement. In other words, where is it that we need to go? What resources did I need to throw at it? What sort of B&P dollars am I going to have if I'm going hand in hand with this small business to go after new work? And by the way, the work that we do and the proposals that we write with these proteges is not always with SCIC standing out front. Often it's with a small business standing out front as a prime contractor and SCIC in the background. So it works both ways. Now, the preponderance of those proposals and business growth areas that we use and develop for our business cases are, in fact, with SCIC as the prime. But we do it both ways. And then, of course, one of the latest, the Ignite agreement that I mentioned here on it, I had to have some special permissions and special resources dedicated to the development of that protege. And so as the mentor, you've got to have some commitments by leadership, the company's leadership, to ensure that those resources are going to be available. It's not just Bruce Emerson standing in the background pushing folks to get together and talk about CMMI and how to reach level 3. It's a lot more than that. And so that's a very important component as well.
Thank you, Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
And up next, we have Gwen Johnson. I think they're pulling up your slides, Gwen.
Sure. I'm Gwen Johnson. I'm the Small Business Director for Parsons. And just to start off, Parsons is an engineering company. Has anybody ever heard of Parsons? Oh, thank God. I get a lot of Parsons who sometimes. But we are an engineering services company. Probably what you see Parsons more for is in the, next slide please, is in the infrastructure support, which is actually what we do for NASA Goddard in Maryland. So Parsons, as an engineering services company, has a wide span of engineering activities. So there's the infrastructure side, just to be very quick about it, which would include anything like construction management, environmental work, facilities management, facilities assessments, very much, as I said, infrastructure. And we do a wide range of that across all of our Parsons organizations, state, local, federal, and commercial. But I want to take the pendulum a little bit here. We're in the NASA space here, so kind of swing it to more technology oriented. We actually do a lot of work in the cybersecurity realm, network security, as well as modeling, simulation, and systems engineering and software engineering. So there's a wide range of engineering services that Parsons is providing. If you take a look at the slide, this is a big overview of Parsons you can take away with you. So in this area, what I want to focus on in our Mentor-Protégé relationship right now for NASA is in the, next slide please, is in the infrastructure space. We currently have a Mentor-Protégé relationship with the company, or we had it, just ended, sorry, with EBA, as an engineering company. And one of the important things I believe, when you think about doing a Mentor-Protégé relationship, you want to have that long-term partnership in mind for the future. So it's really helpful if you're already working with the company, you establish a relationship with them, you've already had them on your contracts, they've been on their contracts. So there's a relationship you're already building. You don't just start off with, oh, I met them last week and they're going to start a Mentor-Protégé relationship with them. It's a little bit difficult. It's like any kind of relationship you build. People are comfortable with working with people that they know or have heard something about. So it's the same thing. You want to kind of take that to the next level with Mentor-Protégé. So EBA had worked with us for many, many years, actually on our NASA Facets program. So Parsons is working at NASA Goddard with their facilities support activity. We've been there. This is our third iteration of the contract. We just won the recompete for that program. And I'm happy to say that we actually are their Mentor-Protégé Program of the Year for 2016. So we've had a long-term relationship with EBA and with NASA on that support. So having done that, if you look at the areas here, it just tells you some of the things that we did, even on the infrastructure side. So we're not, we're not building rockets. We're not, doing propulsion systems, things of that nature. But we are mentoring them. We mentored them, I should say, in the areas of safety, which is in the infrastructure space, is very important. If you're working on a campus, safety provisions are vital. In BIM, business modeling tools. So it was technology transfer in the space that they were in, if that makes sense. What can we do to help them go to the next level of their industry space or their market area? And that's one of the important parts. So when you think about growing a mentor-protégé relationship, is what can the mentor do to help you get to the next level? Not the next 15 levels, but just to your next level of where you are now. So let's go to the next slide. So we had, one of the things I think is very important for a successful relationship, because we all want to be a success, right? Just shake your heads. Right, yes, we all want to succeed, right? No one wants to have a failed program. Some of the important things I think is that you are aligned with the company. You have the same values, you're in the same industry space. They either supplement or they complement the kind of work you're doing on both sides of the coin. So we don't, I can tell you, we've had many mentor-protégé relationships. We don't normally mentor companies that are going to be potential competitors, right? I mean, it's a hard sell internally. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't be maybe 25 years from now, but immediately speaking, it's a hard sell internally because I have to commit my company's resources to mentoring. And so they're going to mentor folks so they can help them support our current client base. So I'm going to look for companies that are strategically aligned with my client space, my markets, the industry that I'm pursuing work in, so that they can have them for long-term partner relationships. If they become competitors down the pike, great, awesome, but for the immediate future here, we're looking at those that we can team together to support clients. That's why we're all in business. We're in business, we're working with the government so we can support the government's mission, or the federal, in this case, NASA's mission, right? Shake your heads with me.
Yes.
We all agree, right? So we also want to make sure that they are financially stable. As Bruce mentioned earlier, if you're a protege and you're worried about being able to make your payroll, it's unlikely you're going to be able to actually in the position to receive any mentoring from us. Now, there are mentor-protege programs where we can invest in the company at a certain level. The SBA allows that in their mentor-protege relationship.
So does NASA.
And so, yes, and
Yes,
so
to
does
some
NASA.
extent,
So we
yes.
can have some level of financial input, but we really can't help sustain your company financially. So you want to be in a position that you can receive mentoring. That's important. Otherwise, it's, you don't get the real benefit of it in the long term. And we also look for companies, if I can say it, that are forward thinking. You're looking at growing. A lot of small businesses, I shouldn't say a lot, but I've run across several in my career that don't want to grow. They're happy to stay in their space, where they are. They don't want to move any forward. They don't want to grow their technology base. They don't want to grow their customer base. That's not what you want to do in the Mentor-Protégé program. The whole idea there is to help you grow. And then you also want to find a mentor, because it's really dependent on not just what I would select as Parsons, but what would you select as your company in a mentor. You want to have the same kind of thoughts here. So you want to look for a mentor that can actually do something for you. What a thought, right? You want a mentor that has the skill sets, has the technology. If you're looking for a PhD program, for instance, you go to schools that would be great in that particular field of study that you're in, you're going to look for the same thing in a mentor-protégé. You'll look for a mentor that can help you grow in the space that you're looking at. And we look for the same thing, of course, on our flip side. So we really think it's a win-win for all the parties. Next slide, please. And so some of the challenges that we've run across in our relationships is expectations, which is probably what you find in your relationships also, right? Everybody has different expectations. You thought she was going to wash all the dishes. She was going to, do all your laundry and whatnot. And then you got married to her and she was like, no, I don't do windows or dishes. Right? Well, it's the same thing in your mentor, and vice versa. If I can use it on the flip side, it's the same thing. You thought that we were going to help you with your payroll next month as the mentor. And we're thinking we're going to help you perhaps in some technology space that would help you do your payroll later down the road. So you want to make sure your expectations are set up front. What are you expecting out of this agreement? And that's when Bruce mentioned the needs assessment is so critical. What do you need that the mentor can actually help provide? If you have expectations that are way up here, and it's really more on the ground as far as what they can do, then it really doesn't help you or the mentor. And then we also have to run into some reality issues here. On our Mentor-Protégé program that we had with Goddard, they were not awarding. It's a work order based contract. They were not awarding tasks. They had budget concerns within that industry office at Goddard, and they were not awarding all the work they anticipated awarding. So that impacted our Mentor-Protégé relationship because we were tasked to give them certain types of work that would help them develop the skill sets that we provided. So we ended up working through it, but budgets do impact. The federal budget does impact, obviously, the type of work we get. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you can measure it. You're going to have metrics in place that you can say this was a success. The company was at ABC, in this technology area, we got them to XYZ. You know, they did this in the past. You know, we've trained so many employees, and now they can actually deliver this service to their customer. And our program with EBA was a lot of training in the construction management or facility management or design type work. So we could actually say that we trained these folks, and they can now deliver this service to that client. And then lastly, some of the benefits and the lessons I think learned here is that we really benefited from this because we finished our relationship. We did great, I believe, in the sense that we won awards. That was great for the public. From a company to company perspective, EBA wanted to continue with us. That's a positive note. You know, does your protege want to keep working with you after the relationship? You know, I'm serious. These are things that you don't think about. You know, did they just take the knowledge and they just ran to the next company, your competitors? But they wanted to actually enter into another mentor-protege relationship with us under another agency because they saw the benefit of what we could provide in that area for them in those engineering services. So I thought that was a great thing. And then one of the things you do want to consider as a lesson learned that we also ran across here is the considering the bandwidth, you know, of your protege. We talked about this a little earlier in the sense that do they have the ability to receive the training that you're going to provide? If they have folks, as Bruce mentioned, all assigned to accounts, then they can't take time off of their accounts and go get a training, an all-day, you know, 8-hour training on some project if they're taking it away from their program that they're supporting. So you've got to consider the bandwidth of your protege. And then now, lastly, we want to say that we want to make sure that they actually got knowledge, that there was some knowledge transfer. And I think we felt like we could have spent more time training them in areas that would help them benefit in the future. So it's good you think about it kind of in a phased approach. So we can train them here in the safety skill sets. We gave them procedures and guidelines and so forth. But what could we do to really transfer knowledge that they could make their own independent decisions in the future? So Parsons, and I didn't mention this earlier, we're about a $3 billion company, $1 billion in our federal space. It takes a management commitment and effort to commit funds, because people are funds, right? We all know that, right? People are money. So if we can put people resources to train a company, it really has to come back and benefit our corporate bottom line, of course, but as well as at the end of the day, what is the protege going to get out of the agreement? And I think that knowledge transfer is critical.
Thank you.
And then lastly, you want to be aligned with your customer's mission, as we talked about. It's very important.
Thank you, Gwen. Up next, we've got Shanice.
Hello. I could almost say a bit
And
ditto.
slides, so-
We all have a similar slides. I'm Shamice Smith, and I'm the Small Business Liaison Officer for SGT. Our company, as we mentioned, we're a large business. We graduated from the SBIR program, I believe, in 2009. So we are approximately maybe about 2,200 employees. And I think last revenue may have been 500 or 600 million. We're growing so quickly. So. Okay, next slide. I actually have several more slides, so I'll try to slim it down a little bit. So we're highly specialized in engineering. That was our forefront when we started as a small business. Our top core capabilities is engineering, scientific analysis, mission operations, and information technology. So you can see here some of the examples in each one of the areas where we specialize. We are working right now in 7 of the NASA centers, as you see listed here. This is so uncomfortable here. We're at Ames, here at Glenn, Goddard, Johnson, Kennedy, Langley, and Stensis. We're also working at other federal agencies as well. We have a contract at FAA, at Department of Transportation. We're working at Defense Department, Department of Interior. We have a contract at U.S. Geological Survey, GSA, and NOAA. We do have several locations around the country. Have you noticed a lot of the locations are close to our client? NASA is one of our major clients. So as you can see here, our headquarters were located in Greenbelt, Maryland. We're right down the street from Goddard. We're in a Houston location, And so you can see some of the other areas where we're located. What are some of the things that we actually purchase? What do we do? Space flight hardware and software. We have mechanical hardware, IT services, engineering. Our mentor-protégé, well, currently we have 5 mentor-protégé agreements. If you count here, it says 4. Federal FAA, we actually have 3. That's a correction there. So we have 3 mentor-protégé agreements. We have 1 with SBA and 1 with NASA Ames. The contract that we have with NASA Ames is a 2-year contract. We just ended our first year, so we have 1 year to go. It's with a woman-owned firm, Mori Associates. They're currently participating and working on our contract at the ISRD contract here at Ames, and they're providing information technology and engineering. From the perspective of from the protege, in talking about the success of the program, a couple of points that they had made with me is that they're very happy with the valuable relationships that they have created with SGT and as well as a client. They also feel that through the Mentor-Protégé program, there's many different levels that we support them. For example, business processes, operations. We have executive coaching, we have business development, we have training, quality assurance. So there's many different areas that we work with our protege in helping them in the long-term development of their company. So it's been very successful, and they're very happy with the relationship. Next slide. Oh, your challenges. Okay. Did you go? The criteria? Okay, this is fine. I thought you went too far. Okay, that's fine. I know we talked about, I know Bruce and Gwen talked a little bit about this. We have been participating in the Mentor-Protégé program since 2009. So when we think about working with a protege or deciding if we want to pursue, one of the things that we do require is to go through a need assessment, which I think was mentioned before, but you're really trying to determine what are some of the development needs of the small business, kind of performing sort of a gap analysis to find out what areas are they looking for development and growth, how is it going to align with what we're doing with our client. So that's one of the first things. We just want to make sure to understand what the strategy is going to be going forward. And then through that, after having the need assessment, is going through putting together what's the development plan, what's the milestones are going to be, who's going to be the responsible lead. So it's going to be very important that we have someone from both sides that's going to be more the champion is what I call them. And then what's the long-term goals of the program. Commitment to the mentor-protege. We want to make sure that in both parties that we are committed to the program. Having relevant technology. So is it something that's going to really support our client, the mission? Is it aligned with what we're doing on our programs? What's the past performance? Do you have past performance in that area? And working with the federal government, with that client, with the customer, with us as the prime. We want to make sure that those items, we want to make sure that that it's going to be a good fit. And what are some of your niche capabilities that you may have that can further drive and support some of our other programs as well. And I have here the last one's ability to properly manage a staff. I listed that there because that's something more, I guess you would say more post-award activity. So once you become a partner with us, it's just making sure that you are working seamlessly together. So if you have a number of resources that's on the program that's supporting, we want to make sure that they're managed properly and that they're working seamlessly with our team. Next slide, the challenges. Okay. Oh. I've never been told that. Usually I talk 2 minutes. Okay, quickly. Just the challenges, and I think we sort of talked about it, is underestimating the expectations. Time, resources, sometimes they'll go in a relationship and said, I didn't realize it was going to take that much time. I thought maybe I was going to assign, one person, but I realized we need 5 on the team. So just really wanting to make sure that the expectations are set, and that we understand the terms of what the agreement and what you actually need before we can move forward. Sometimes it's a protege or a small business may think it's all about winning a contract. That's part of it, but it's not everything. It's really about how do we bring that company from where they are now to having a long-term success. So yes, we do work with a business development team to help to win, to be a part of our contracts, but it's also a lot more into the development and technology. Sometimes it may not be a good fit. Maybe the objectives were different. And again, it just goes back to making sure that during those initial discussions that you have all of those commitments and you've talked about all the things that are required for moving forward. Benefits and lessons learned. Okay. Okay. Long-term relationships, and that's really what we're looking for, and I think Gwen had mentioned that before. We want to look past the mentor-protege agreement, and after the 2 years, we want to continue that relationship because there are in some cases a small business is now in a position that they can be a prime, and so maybe we can work with a small business as being a sub to a small business. So we're looking for long-term relationships. We're looking for full commitment so that we hold each other accountable, and it's very important in that relationship. And a large business for us, it's helping us to build our resources of small businesses that we can work with for future contracts. And I'll kind of skip through this because we don't have much time. Yeah, but just how to find a mentor. Again, this is going to be provided to you. And then the last page, just final thoughts. Making sure that you target the large businesses that are going to be similar to what your technology is. I was going to say to reach out to the small business office at the large business because that's your best point of contact. And my information is on the last page. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. Does anyone have any questions? All right.
So anyway, previously there was a lot of talk about commercialization, and so I do wonder, I can see the value of this program in a phase 2, in the commercialization sense. What I have not heard from any of you is how does a larger company support a small business in that sense, like a venture arm of that company that says, okay, here's a bridge, between phase 1 and phase 2 or phase 2 to phase 3 and help them develop their commercialization strategy, which ultimately will be a benefit to the larger company anyway. Are you pursuing anything like that where somebody with a phase 2 or a phase 1 going to a phase 2 can be supported or can incorporate you in their commercialization plan and count on you to inject capital to allow them to get to the next TRL, test readiness level, to meet the phase 2 requirements or phase 3?
I can't speak to, we're not participating right now in the SBIR ourselves, although we've actually had several thoughts about it. But if I look at it from the perspective just of EBA that we talked about, so what would Parsons do to help you commercialize? And would we do this actually without having an SBIR type program? So they are companies, our mentor, our protege, and we're supporting them and helping them to develop a BIM, which is building modeling technology, which is used not just in the federal space, but quite rapidly, used in the commercial space. So Parsons Federal, which is where I work, I would branch them out to my commercial counterparts, which we have done actually, and EBA is actually working with us commercially, using the same skill sets and technologies to bring that to customers, such as bridges and tunnels. We have a whole arm of infrastructure that does bridges, tunnels, aviation, highways, etc. So that's really an important thing. If the company, just to speak from an Mentor-Protégé perspective here, if the company only could work in my little space, that doesn't really help the bigger Parsons, right? So I always look for our companies to see what can we do with them commercially. We had another company we were venturing that was doing towers for the FAA. And so towers are happening in the commercial world, of course, with our commercial carriers like Verizon, Sprint, etc. We branched them out into that aspect also, taking the same technology and services that we've helped them build here
Sure.
and using it in the commercial environment. So I can't speak to a specific, SBIR because we don't participate in the SBIR,
Sure.
but it is something, if we can look at it from a technology perspective, if it's a technology we're helping them build, and it's something we see we can future sell in other parts of the company, we will definitely invest and make that.
Yeah, I almost think from a higher level in terms of NASA's responsibility is to try to, since, there's all this talk about showing financials, balance sheets, and so on and so forth on the commercialization side. Why not tie, is it possible to tie the requirements of the mentor-protégé or make it so that the mentor-protégé, where the mentor would actually support, the phase 2 or phase 3 effort?
So one of the things that we do in our program is that we look at, trying to get the mentors more acclimated. And that's why they come to events such as this, so they can actually know more about viable companies they can do or help gets to a phase 3. Now, one of the things that we look at is the mentor. I know Bruce, Gwen, Shamis have all mentioned this before, is that they use their money at their company. They use their money, and then NASA will give them money after we see that they've actually developed something and actually see that the TRL level has got to a certain phase. We've got to put together a team that reviews this proposal and actually sees it makes sense. And then we can actually give them the money, because it's not something we're just going to give you the money to, all right, you've done great, thank you very much. But we want to see that there is some sort of tangible result and it's measured. So in this case, we work closely with the Center Technology Transition Leads, and we make sure we get their input because they understand the technology. They also understand what the measures of success are, and they make sure that it's something that they can see and we can actually know that we have done something to help. Not only NASA is helping NASA, but it's also helping the company in the commercial space. So I also wanted to mention, I know some of you have heard about the SBA's All Small Mentor-Protégé program. Have any of you heard about that program? Okay, one or two. So the SBA has got a great program, the All Small Mentor-Protégé program. They currently have almost about 300 mentor-protégé agreements. And one of the things that they do is currently the SBA has to grade every agency's program. They've got to determine if this program is going to be moving forward. NASA has got to formally request a waiver, and we're currently in the process of getting that done. We've had discussions with the associate administrator. Her name is Holly Schick, who runs the program, and it's our intent to go ahead and request a waiver to operate our program. But other than that, by August 24th, if they do not grant the waiver, all other federal agency mentor-protégé programs will be rolled into the SBA's All Small Mentor-Protégé program. Now, we have got to show them that there is some sort of benefit or to running our program. And we feel like we have a great case because in our program, like I said, we have 10 eligible categories. The SBA's is a little different. They don't have as many eligible protégé categories as ours, but then they also have the joint venture aspect, which is a no-brainer for any small business. But NASA's intent is to move forward with our program, and we'll make sure we keep you updated. We have time for one more question. Yes, sir. The cube is on its way. Okay, you don't need a cube.
We actually have virtual.
Thank you, sir.
So what's your concept of the minimum size of a small business that would fulfill the requirements that you've been talking about and be able to stay committed and be a good protege?
The size of the company can vary from, I have had a protege be as small as 20 employees. What's the smallest each of you?
I think the smallest I had at another company was probably 2 or 3, and it was pretty tough, and it was a DoD program, but we made it.
You made it work.
I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah, it's hard on you.
It's harder, right? Because it was a lot of bandwidth. Because basically the president had to do. She was the point of contact for everything.
What about you, Bruce?
Well, SAS, is this on?
Yeah.
SASC's has a rule of thumb. It's not a hard rule, but we try to get protege agreements established with the companies that have 50 people or more.
Okay.
That way we know that they've got the bandwidth and the availability to, when you're a 15,000 person company or a large business working with a small, regardless of the two sizes, you've got to have enough resources on both sides of the table to handle it. So our rule of thumb is 50. Yeah.
What about Gwen for Parsons?
We don't have a rule of thumb. I can say though that we have started relationships. I have 3 other Mentor-Protégé relationships happening, and one of them is a company of 3, and it started with a program manager at Parsons has been informally providing program management assistance to this company, mentoring them for some time, and so now we're going to make that a formal Mentor-Protégé relationship under the Missile Defense Agency. So it is a little harder because they do have a bandwidth issue, but we, depending on the company, if it makes sense, if they're in your line of business, and you have an invested program manager that can provide that one-on-one support, then it's a possibility.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. So one of the things that I would like to make sure you're aware of is now you've got the information, you've heard from the subject matter experts, you've heard from our prime contractors. A lot of them do engineering, but they're not limited to engineering. They do a whole lot more. Please take the time and come and meet with some of them. You never know, you might be that next company they would like to talk to us about mentoring. So that's what they're here for. But we've given you the information that you need. Hopefully we're giving you the tools that you need. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask us. Come to my website, pick up the phone, give me a call, talk to our small business specialists because they know a whole lot more than even I do. The only other thing I wanted to mention was, that you have technology that we need. So we need to figure out a way for you to get engaged in what we're doing and how we can make sure we can move you and get you engaged. So our website, www.OSBP, Office of Small Business Programs.nasa.gov. You know how to get the information we need. And if you have any questions, come see me. Come to the back to the one-on-one sessions. And thank you so much for your time.
Good job. Good job.